Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you're at in the world. Welcome to Gamble Data, our live AMA. Uh, used to do these on Friday nights, started doing these on Thursday afternoons, Thursday mornings around 11:30 will be our normal time, but wanted to jump on tonight and had some free time. Thought I'd jump on and do a little AMA as well as really talk through what it's like as somebody that's doing consulting and balancing a full-time job, and answer any questions that you may have for if you're an aspiring data engineer or currently a data engineer that might be thinking about jumping into consulting. So super excited about tonight's uh, subject, and let me know, say hello in the chat, let me know that you're here, introduce yourself, and we'll get going here. So whether you're here again breaking into data, an aspiring data engineer looking to level up, or I'll just tell some wild consulting stories that I've come across. I'm happy to share those as well if that's what you're interested in. And hey, um welcome back, fam. Thanks for joining tonight. um but really just looking to kind of pull back that curtain and talk about what it's like as a data engineering consultant, as a data strategy consultant with enterprises. uh oh yeah, good morning, good morning. um so and working with clients, I've worked with enterprise clients, I've worked with small businesses over the years. So just having that conversation, happy to share my experience and answer any questions that you may have. um, Let me know down in the chat, are you already in a data engineering position? Are you aspiring into a data professional position? Or maybe you are just data curious. Let me know kind of which one of those categories that you fall into, and I'd love to know more about y'all. So one of the questions that even my friends ask uh, is, how do I balance consulting with my day job and a family and kids and all that? I say kids, I only have one, but she is awesome and away at Girl Scout camp for the weekend, so super excited about that. But and why did I get into consulting in the first place? So I'll tell you that, honestly, balancing is a big piece, and we'll get into that more in depth. But why I got into consulting, I spent time uh, as a director of data and analytics for AT&T Cybersecurity, and really enjoyed that role. Really loved working with my team in that role. Um, and I saw things that were going on in an enterprise that, you know, really had to be navigated well. And really, I had kind of insights into, things and strategy, strategy sessions that not everybody gets an opportunity to be in. And so taking those skills, taking that experience, and sharing it out with other companies that maybe don't have those experienced data leaders is something that I wanted to do, especially after 25 years of my career. Um, Good morning. In ADF, how do you ingest data from on-prem to ADLS Gen 2 if there's 20 tables and there are 5 tables that are loaded partially, and middle of pipeline run it fails, and how do you rerun it? That is a super specific, in-depth question um, that I'd probably need more information about. It there's plenty of ways. Um, there's plenty of ways that you could do that. You know, in ADF, you should be from on-prem. So from like an on-prem database, I'm assuming, especially since you're talking about tables. There's obviously ways in ADF to just rerun the pipeline. Hopefully, you've got your pipeline set up so that it's looking at the existing data and clearing, and making sure that it's not duplicating the records, and you've got some good, quality assurance type checks there. Um, but 5 tables that are loaded partially mid of pipeline run and it fails. You get those first 5 tables that load properly. It depends on how your pipeline's set up. If you have one task for each of those loads, then ADF makes it easy, right? Data Factory makes it easy. You could go in and rerun the pipeline from the failed step after you've investigated it and kind of figured out what was going on. If you have it built in like a loop, right? Maybe you're looping through all the tables and you have some parameters and variables, then it gets a little bit more difficult, right? And so you have to do kind of a little bit of manipulation, maybe grab some of those variables for that loop and cut out the 5 that have already run and rerun it that way. um but that's there's the on-prem to ADLS Gen 2. It honestly could be another cloud database to it into blob storage, or it could be, it could literally be from anything. Could be from, maybe you have multiple API calls that you're running, and you're dumping that data into cloud storage. That part is kind of neither here nor there. You've got a partial run that's completed. You need to identify, start by identifying what the issue was, make sure that you've addressed whatever that issue was, and then, my suggestion is rerun the whole thing, because time has passed and you probably need to rerun that data for those 5 tables, or that you already ran. But if that's not the case and you're confident that nothing has changed in the 5 tables that have already run, then I'd cut out those 5 tables and rerun your pipeline. Or, like I said, if you have it set up in a way where you're not just looping through with variables, then just rerun your pipeline from the failed task. It's easy as that. So, getting back to the subject of the night, again, talking about consulting, again, happy to answer any of those questions as well that come up, but definitely also want to have this conversation about consulting. I want to delete a number of rows in a delta table which already have a million rows. What are all the strategies or steps that we need to follow? Again, there's a lot. That's a loaded question too. Without knowing the specifics, the little bit more details, you want to delete a few number of rows. Are we talking a few thousand? Are we talking literally 3 rows? Um, what are we talking about there? That's you know part of learning how to uh, be in this role and be in data engineering is making sure that you're asking the right questions. You know, both of yourself, asking the right questions of, okay, especially when you're troubleshooting, asking yourself those questions of, okay, where do I need to look? What am I really talking about? What is the right solution? What are some options? Um, Having some fail safes in place so that you could roll back when you need to. It's important to have that. But I mean, if you want just delete, like literally, if it's a one-time thing and you want to delete some rows, then you just open up the SQL editor, and you could delete the rows from the delta table with just a simple delete statement. Obviously, being very careful about your where clause and being very specific. I would definitely run just a select statement with your where clause to make sure that you're capturing the right records. But that, you could do that. Um, Again, I'd run the select statement. I'd drop those records that you're going to delete into a temp table so that you have them for backup if you need to restore them, and then you could run your delete statement. But just like you would in a SQL server or any other Oracle database or whatever. Hey, Data Ranger, thanks for joining tonight. All right, so sorry, back to consulting and kind of how I balance things. So balancing things, I have a contract with a company, and that contract honestly gives me some flexibility because it's a contract for one, and for two, it's actually it is a full-time position, but it is only like 37 hours a week. So it's not, you know, I don't quite have the whole 40 hours that I'm working. So it's not quite the whole thing. So I have a little bit of leeway there. Um, so a little bit of flexibility, which gives me time during the week. Um, I use my lunch times to uh, sometimes I just work through my lunch times, and so I cut out a little bit earlier because it is an hourly role. Uh, and then I'm able to balance that with mentoring. Sometimes I start a little bit late in the morning because I have a couple of mentees that I mentor early in the morning. Um, and then sometimes I will, especially over the summer when my daughter's out of school and I don't have to worry about picking her up. Uh, Sometimes I will do like these live streams at like 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Uh, and that helps me balance. And then as far as the actual like fractional work that I do, most of that I could balance at night. Like I could work on my, you know, what I work for with my consulting work at night, and then if I need to meet with those clients, then I could have those meetings sometimes in the middle of the day at lunchtime, at lunch hour type times, or at the end of the day. The clients that I particularly work with is Central Time Zone, so they're an hour behind me, anyways, and so I'm able to meet with them at like 5 p.m. my time, and it's not a big thing. So it works out. It happens to work out well. So, so yeah. As far as how I got into consulting, again, I was kind of starting to talk through that conversation of I had a amazing opportunity with AT&T Cybersecurity to be a director of data and analytics. Actually, had taken over, had become the leader of the team that I was on when my former leader had left. Who is amazing. Geo was awesome, and is continues to be a mentor for me. Um, but he left and moved on to another company, and I stepped up into that role. And so it was an awesome opportunity. Really enjoyed doing that, and learned a lot about creating data strategy, and especially in a large enterprise. Uh, and then also at the time we were going through a divestiture. And so working with companies like PwC to do due diligence of, the leads that we had and the pipeline that we had and our, historical data, and working with them to create packages so that we could present to potential buyers. And so having all that experience and all that work and knowing all those things that go into a divestiture and migrate, during that time I did some migrations from AWS to Azure, and then ended up migrating from Azure back to AWS during the divestiture because of, just buyer situations. And so having that experience to migrate cloud platforms, developing that strategy to that, ongoing data strategy, I wanted to take those skills and that knowledge, and especially again after 25 years of being in this career, wanted to take that and move into a consulting role. I wanted to start consulting and working with more businesses. I really enjoy having the flexibility and the and the experience of working with multiple industries. Uh, I've had the opportunity since then to work with manufacturing companies, continued to work with telecommunications companies. I've worked with some private sector companies, government type entities, and so have really enjoyed having those different opportunities. Again, it gives me some flexibility and freedom, gives me, uh, you know, a little bit extra income, right? A considerable amount of extra income, and gives me the flexibility um, and the finances to do these things, right? Because I don't make any money from the content that I share directly. Um, I have some affiliate programs that I have set up that help me to have a little bit of income streams, but as far as like YouTube paying me, I don't get any of that. Um, but um, but that's kind of how I balance those things. But it really one of the ways that after I left AT&T, I worked for a company for um, I love Databricks. Uh, yes, honestly, Data Ranger. I love Databricks. I think that Databricks is a amazing platform. Uh, had some issues with it today just because of an update and a system issue on the Databricks end. But overall, in general, I love Databricks. I think that if you have that technical skill, if you have that Python skill already, it is an awesome tool to really go deep in. And I'm having the opportunity now, continue to have the opportunity now to work with Databricks in my consulting roles, which is awesome. I've really enjoy working with Databricks. But yeah, I absolutely think that being a Databricks data engineer provides you with a good career path, because again, your technical acumen there needs to be a little bit more than working with, say, ADF or Synapse or Fabric. um, and uh, and Databricks is cloud platform agnostic. It could be behind Azure, could be behind AWS. It doesn't care. Databricks doesn't care which one it sits behind. So, but yeah, definitely a good career path, and those roles have a tendency to be a little bit more lucrative as well. Again, just because of the need for the more advanced skill set than you have to have with some of the Azure pipelines. How many months will it take for a fresher starting with SQL and Python to transition into a data engineering role? And you'll see me kind of glance over here because I'm reading the question on the screen, so I apologize. But move my camera this way, but then it covers up the questions. So that depends on you, right? Part of it is how passionate and how much time you have available to practice and learn. I think that from a fresher perspective, uh, and really if you have no background with SQL or any type of programming, you're probably looking at 18 months before you have enough foundation underneath of you that you're going to be able to pass an interview, to be completely honest. If you're completely fresh, have absolutely no programming skills at all, right? You've never touched any other programming, uh, not Java, not JavaScript. You don't understand loops. You don't understand if statements. You've not even played with maybe VBA or anything like that. I would say 18-ish months. Um, Especially to have to learn SQL, which is where I would start, because SQL gives you a good foundation, and then jumping into Python and having to learn Databricks on top of that, probably 12 to 18 months. Again, a lot of that depends on you and how dedicated you are and how much time you have to apply to it. That's a great question. And as always, those of you that are jumping on, let me know down in the chat what questions you have. Say hello. We've got some repeat people here, so super excited about that. Snowflake versus Databricks. Which is your favorite platform to work for? Now, I'll say that currently, right now, I am literally working with both. Um, my contract role is I'm working with Informatica and Snowflake, and my consulting role, I'm working with Databricks. So literally on a daily basis, I have my hand in both of those. Um, and it's I like both. I probably like Databricks better, but but I love Snowflake. I like Databricks because I enjoy, you know, Delta and I enjoy um, Python, right? Being able to write, use the Spark library and write Python scripts and have a whole lot of flexibility there. But you could write Python scripts in Snowflake now too. So, and that's not super new, but it's been around for a couple years. But that's an opportunity too. So I used to love Snowflake because, and continue to love Snowflake because of how well it handles kind of semi-structured data, right? JSON payloads, XML. I had a project where we had a source system that was completely was would transmit the data. We would export the data from the system, and would all come over in XML, and we dump it into Snowflake into a uh, into a table, and then I had um, I had queries and processes that would go through and parse all of that XML and flatten it, and it was it again. Snowflake did a great job with it. Alternatively, again, with Databricks, you have Python. And with Python, you have other libraries and constructors that you could create and write the code for, and it works out well. So right now, I would say Databricks. Right at this very moment, I would say Databricks. Um, but if you ask me in another 6 months, I might say Snowflake, depending on the day. Do you think certifications such as DP 3011 Azure Data? That's a great question, and it's a question that I get asked all the time, right? For those of you that have been in these sessions, we've had this conversation before. If you've gone back and looked at some of my stuff that I've posted on LinkedIn, and even some of the prior videos, my big thing is don't overcrank on getting certifications. As when I was a director and I was hiring people in position, during those periods where I was hiring people, uh, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the certification piece. I want to know practically, can they logic out an issue? Can they take an issue that I give them and really be able to process it logically and be able to communicate and be able to ask questions and not just jump right into an answer. Um, but I will say, if you're going for specialization, if you're trying to narrow down your specialization and you want to be a Databricks data engineer, and that's the focus you want to be on, and that's the track you're going to be on, then go get that Databricks data engineer certification. If you're going to stay with Snowflake, if Snowflake's the right path for you, then go that SnowPro route. If you're going to stick with Azure, then get that DP 700, right, which is that Fabric Data Engineer position, Fabric Data Engineer cert. But don't get all five, right? Pick the ones that you're going to focus on, that's the area you're going to focus on, and stick with that and go down that path and develop that deep understanding, the deep skill set of that path. Otherwise, you spread yourself too broadly, and you're never going to apply to any position that is using, Azure Fabric, Databricks, Snowflake, and AWS. Right? That nothing's going to no job that you apply for is going to use every one of those. Pick the one that you're going to specialize in and stick with it. Is data engineering moving towards AI engineering in the future? I see internships and full jobs. Data engineering asking for AI skills like RAG. Now, RAG is not necessarily a AI skill. I mean, RAG is something that's been around for a bit. But as far as like agent, being able to manage agent swarms and things like that, I think that eventually Data engineering has always been a career that is ever evolving. We always have a new tool, there's always a new platform. They are every 5 years coming up with somebody's coming up with some new way that they want to reinvent SQL. Again, just like the pipe syntax that recently has re emerged as a big thing. We had KQL several years ago. We had BigQuery last year say, hey, we're going to implement pipe syntax for SQL. And then recently we had Databricks say that, hey, we're going to introduce pipe syntax for SQL. And it was a big conversation. Um, it, so, so those periods happen. This is just the next evolution of data engineering, right? We have a new tool. It is AI. There are a ton out there. There is one in particular that I'm really really been investigating and starting to play with, and it's called Mage AI, and it's a really cool data engineering AI platform, and I really like it, and I would encourage you to check it out. But I think that in the future, part of our jobs, really the more basic things, will be AI agents that are going out and doing it, right? I think that we will continue to have to identify and program for the edge cases. We will continue to have to evaluate and make sure that anybody that's extensively used AI uh, lately, um, you know that it's not perfect, that it's nowhere near perfect, and it makes mistakes and it misses things, especially things that maybe are domain specific, that the AI's maybe not been trained on yet, and you're going to have to be there to monitor that. So part of our jobs will be evaluating and monitoring and setting up alerting for when those agents don't catch the things that they need to catch. And part of our jobs will be programming for those edge cases, those more complicated, business cases that need to be programmed out for. It just, it will automate some of the easy stuff that we don't want to do anyways, and there leave us time and energy for the more complex skills. Um, is Data Fabric a good competitor for Databricks as both are unified solutions? I don't like Fabric. I don't have a problem with Fabric. I don't I don't I wouldn't put it in the same class as Databricks. Like it's just a different class and a different use case. Uh Databricks is for when you're really dealing with like petabytes of data every day. Fabric is maybe lesser. Maybe you're talking about terabytes or less of data per day. And so, yeah, they're both kind of unified solutions, especially with Databricks, really implementing some of the BI solutions within it lately. Um, and they're, they both have this full, almost really full equal ecosystem of resources in them that really allow you to do the whole thing within those tools. Um, I like Fabric for what it is, bringing everything together into a uh, like one kind of sphere, right? You have your Power BI, you have especially now that they've implemented, you could have SQL, you could create a SQL database in there. You can have your Power BI in there, obviously, your ADF pipelines, and you could orchestrate things with your ADF pipelines. And all the other various tools, and it's all in one place. Databricks, again, you have more uh, more use cases that you could apply situations to, especially if you have things like IoT devices that are pushing data to and from with service buses, and again, you're dealing with like petabytes a day. Um, yeah, that. Um, can I choose as a fresher? Can I choose data engineering field? If you are brand new to the field, if you have never worked with data at all, no, it there is very little chance that you're going to jump straight into a data engineer position. Um, I talked to somebody earlier, and I get this from time to time. Had a couple guys at my previous company where they were software engineers, um, and they wanted to move into data engineering. That is a practical path. Sometimes, and there are definitely more junior software engineers out there, engineer positions out there than there are junior data engineer positions out there. So, you could even do like back end, right? You could do some back end dev work and start to build up some of those skill sets, especially Python and SQL, and then start moving into a data engineering career. There's this guy out there called the data janitor. He is a machine learning engineer. He really gives, if you haven't checked him out, you should go and check him out. He's great, but really gives some very practical, very straightforward, sometimes harsh at times advice on what your career path should be. But he's awesome. If you haven't checked him out, check him out. But and he'll tell you DBAs are no longer the right career path for data engineers. Don't jump into a DBA position and expect that you're going to get to move into a data engineer position. What I hear him say a lot is he really pushes that data analyst role as the role to jump into to eventually migrate into data engineering. So yeah, that's a really long-winded answer to your question. Prophecy is Spark and Databricks based low-code data engineering pipeline development platform. Prophecy is I've used Prophecy at Cirrus and the company that I am consulting with right now also uses Prophecy. But the use cases are not what you would expect them to be. I don't like low code, no code tools. Again, I like Databricks, so that probably tells you right there. But I use Informatica. I use Informatica Intelligent Cloud Services in my contracting role, and that is kind of a low code, no code tool platform. The ADF, right? ADF is really a low code, no code type tool where you're just dragging and dropping nodes and then you're configuring them. And there's definitely those tools can become more complex, but I prefer the Databricks. I prefer one of my favorite patterns is to just write Python scripts, put them in Docker containers, throw them in Elastic services on AWS, and create Lambda triggers to run those containers, and then even layering in Airflow on top of that, right? For my more complex pipeline orchestration, ETL orchestration. So that's my take on that. You stress the importance of problem solving. I do stress problem solving processes. How can one practice this? Say through projects. Any quick tips on data engineering internship seekers trying to develop or show skill? Nikhil, hey. Okay, sorry, I had to say hello. Jump back to Quang here. Okay, so I do stress all the time importance of being able to problem solve and troubleshoot. Incredibly important in data engineering, incredibly important in any career really that you go into. As far as how you could practice that, I would go out there and start writing your own code. If you are writing code, you're going to run into errors. Learning how to troubleshoot those errors, seeing those errors, is going to teach you how to troubleshoot. Going out and figuring, and copy and pasting that error and dumping it into a Google search and finding the responses, reading Stack Overflow responses, using AI, and using AI for the tool that it is, which is a learning tool, and you're going to give it a error message, and it's going to spit out maybe some code, and you're going to copy and paste that code and run it again, and it's going to give you a different error message because it'll solve one piece but not solve the other. The important piece is, I really want to enforce this real quick before I try to jump through some of these other questions here. But really want to enforce that if you're using AI to code, if you're using AI to learn, make sure that you are learning how to read the code. Don't just take what AI gives you at face value and use it and plug it in and move forward with life. Learn what that code is doing, learn how to read it just like you would read any other book. And if you need an explanation of it, you could always reach out to me, but ask ChatGPT if ChatGPT is what you're using, or if you're using Claude or whatever the case may be. Ask, what is this code doing? Can you read it to me in plain language? And it will explain to you what that code is doing. And that is what you need to learn. Learn how to read code. Don't just learn how to copy and paste it from, even if you're using, Stack Overflow or something, Stack Exchange, any of those, platforms. Make sure that you understand what it is you're reading, what it is that you're, kind of repurposing, and learn how to troubleshoot those errors. When you're doing those things, you're gonna have errors. They're gonna come up, and you're going to need to take them and figure out how to troubleshoot them. And just by nature of doing that, you'll learn how to troubleshoot and problem solve. What's Data Talks Club? It seems now Microsoft is kind of thrusting Fabric. Yes, Microsoft is, Microsoft decommissioned and discontinued the DP 203 exams, which is the old, data engineering associate exams. You now have to take the 700, which is the Fabric data engineer exams. In addition, Power BI Pro subscriptions for enterprises, they discontinued the those licenses, and you have to go into Fabric now. So enterprises are being forced into Fabric. Absolutely, that's great insight. I'm scared of coding, but very passionate about data engineering. I'm confused. Tool-based versus coding-based platforms. Why should I learn to code? I have so many comments here. If don't be scared of coding. Don't be scared of coding. Learn how to code. Learning how to code is a amazing tool that will help you with the rest of your life. Learn it because it is going to teach you how to think through things logically. Writing SQL is code. I mean, you ask a software engineer if it's code, they're probably going to laugh at you and tell you it's not. But I know plenty of software engineers that will admit that yes, absolutely, SQL is code. If you're writing SQL, which you absolutely have to learn if you're going to be in any data profession, that's coding. That is kind of like some people's gateway drug into coding. And so learn how to code. As far as being confused as tool-based versus coding-based platforms, you're not going to have a low-code, no-code tool if a company's using Databricks. If you don't learn how to write Python, you're never going to get a data engineering career where they're using Databricks. And then you're stuck with ADF. You're stuck with, ancient sys packages, SSIS packages. You're stuck with Informatica, which is not great. Low code, no code tools have limitations because they've lowered the bar to entry to that point where there's just limitations. You don't have the freedom that you have when you know how to code. How do I manage my time? Okay, great question. Kind kind of going back to thank you, Nikhil, for helping me circle back on this. Um, as far as managing my time, you know, again, I was talking about this a little bit earlier. I work full time, right? I have a full time contract. I also do consulting on the side, and and again, especially in the summer when I don't have to take my daughter to school, I could start earlier. I kind of have the freedom. A lot of the people I work with, from the consulting standpoint, work in Central Time Zone. So if I need to actually physically meet with them, I could meet with them later in the day. After my full time job's over, I could meet with them sometimes at lunchtime, which is earlier in the day for them. Um, and then I actually do the work in the evenings a lot of times, uh, as my daughter and my wife are getting ready for bed, and I, take 2, 3, 4 hours in the evenings, depending on what the situation is, and do my work in the evening. So that's a lot of how I balance my time. Uh, hopefully, hopefully that helps. And if you have any more specific questions and maybe situations that you're in, time management is such an incredible skill to have, um, and being able to juggle and balance multiple priorities is something that is a skill set that, again, is going to set you up for life. Early in my life, I was had the opportunity to take be in a Franklin Covey class where, kind of learned some time management skills there. I had the opportunity to go through the uh, 7 effective skills for leaders, and those types of things help me. Being able to do that kind of early in my 20s really helped me to uh, being able to learn how to manage my time as I continue to move through my career. Um, so, yeah, uh, going through my notes, seeing what else I have to cover. Let me know again, for those of you that haven't said hello yet. Say hello. Uh, Super excited to see some new names up here today. Super excited to see some repeat people. People coming back from earlier sessions in the week and live sessions in the week and over the last week or two. And again, the new names. Super excited that you're here. Hi, welcome. Um, so thank you all for jumping on. Let me know what questions you have down in the chat. It's been an amazing conversation so far. I've really enjoyed it. Um, Again, we don't necessarily stick to the topic in these sessions. Sometimes we bounce around, as you see. But I do want to talk about, if anybody has any questions about how to get into consulting, how to balance your time between a full-time role, W-2 role, and doing some consulting on the side. Um, Happy to have those conversations, uh, and have plenty of stories about different things that I've seen over the years. So let me know what questions you have. Um, Again, thank you all for joining and having these conversations. Cool. Okay, so let's see. Let's maybe talk about, while I'm waiting for other questions to pop in, what nobody tells you about data engineering, and being able to do some data strategy consulting, right? The job description, you see so many job descriptions out there. You see these job descriptions, you need to have 6 years of Python. You have to have 6 years of specifically Spark, being able to understand distributed uh, database concepts, being able to understand medallion architecture, being able to understand Azure, being able to understand this whole array of things. Sometimes you'll see Java sneak in there. There's so many you know things on those job descriptions and job recs, and it never actually matches what the reality of what those roles are, right? It, especially early in my career, there were some roles where, like, they wanted me to have all of this SQL Server and like SSIS and AS and RS type experience, and then I get in there and everything is still in Excel files, right? And they haven't even begun to build a data warehouse in SQL Server yet. And so sometimes that happens. Uh, Great. Okay, awesome. We have some questions. All right. What's my approach to learning new technology? Do I prefer taking notes, or do you rely more on hands-on practice to remember things? I am more of a hands-on person. Um, However, I've done some teaching in my career as well, and I know, and my wife is a professor, has been a professor at a university in social work, but she, you know, everybody has their own learning style, right? Some people are read and absorb and apply, and some people are hands-on. Some people are they need to hear it, right? Some people are I have to hear it and I have to take notes. Some people are active though. I'm an active learner, and so I need hands-on practical examples of what I'm doing. And so for me, I go out and create my own project and go out and I find a data source that I am excited about. Like you'll see in some of my videos, especially my early videos, like I'm a big nerd. And so as you see behind me, I have this Marvel Comics thing, I have the Darth Vader thing. And so there are like Star Wars and Marvel APIs that you could go out there and hit. And so I would create projects around that and then use those new platforms. That's how I learned Informatica, right? Taught myself how to use Informatica Power Center and Informatica IICS by going out and learning how to connect to those API calls and pull the data in and then push it into a database in Informatica. And so that's kind of my method. But again, everybody has their own skill sets. You know, I have a bunch of books back there, and I use them more for reference, especially when I need to find something that maybe is a little is a rarely used thing that maybe is hard to find on the internet, and I'll use those references sometimes. Or if sometimes I like the reference books for when you're studying for a certification, um, because I want that paper because you need to know the vocabulary and you need to know the technical descriptions of things to get through a lot of those certifications. um, but they don't necessarily practically teach you how to use the tools. So for that, I like to have the practical examples. um, at the moment, I don't know what I'm interested in. I want to do data engineering sometimes, cybersecurity, data science, AI, web development. um, and that's a common thing. uh, Hey, welcome. Maybe that's how you pronounce your name. Okay, my first time here. I'm gonna jump back to this question real quick, and I'll get to your second. All right. Um, and then here's the actual. Oh, that's Data Ranger. Um, it. I'll tell you that uh, Wanamo-san, Wanamo-san, um, that's common, right? Especially if you're early in your career. I'll tell you that, and I have a LinkedIn article this week too, where I'm kind of talking about my personal origin story. And if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, be sure to follow me on LinkedIn, and you could see my newsletter, Data with Direction. Um, but this week's newsletter was about my origin story, and I'll tell you that I went to college, I went to university out of high school as a uh, as a sports management major. So I took recreation type classes. I was a student football manager for the university that I went to, and that was my career aspiration at that time. Obviously, not what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, but yeah, this happens. At least you have it kind of narrowed down to IT. I jumped from a very soft skill oriented uh, position into a very technical position. So at least you have it down to, cyber and data engineering are at least, and data science, AI, web development are all, programming type positions. So it's not a bad thing. How ETL and master data management process are related. Um, MDM stuff, you have to. So for instance, like if you have your you're working on the MDM for like your customer data set, you need ETL to get to that master data of for your customer data set, right? You need the ETL to create that master data set. Um, I guess that's as simple as I could explain it. That's really boiling it down to a really basic, simple explanation. And there's so much more to both of them, but that's, yeah. I mean, again, the end goal is really, loading data um, into some type of like gold layer table uh, type thing. This is my first time here. If I want to make my career as a data engineer, analyst, or scientist, what tools would I use except VS Code? VS Code, for those of you that don't know, is definitely a tool that you will use. Um, and so, and for those of you that really don't know, I'll show you real quick what VS Code looks like. But aside from VS Code, which is share screen, window, this one over here, looks like this, right? This is VS Code with some Python scripting in it. This particular Python script goes through and kills a bunch of Databricks jobs that are that may be running, and so there's that. But if you have VS Code is definitely something that you will use. What tools did these tech companies use in the real world? VS Code. I use VS Code in both my contracting role and my consulting role. Mostly the consulting side to test things. But and then as far as other than VS Code, there's so many tools, especially for data engineers. There are an insane number of tools, and I would recommend that you pick the ones that you want to. I said this earlier, I'll say it again. You pick the ones that you want to specialize in, that you really want to focus on, and those will be the ones that you use. VS Code is obviously kind of agnostic and will be used no matter what. Pick a data platform, pick a cloud platform and learn that. Pick an ETL tool and learn that. Pipeline tool, workflow tool, whether that's Informatica, if that's what you want to specialize in, or it is Synapse /ADF, and you're going to go that Azure route, or it's AWS Glue, or it's Python, and you're going to learn, really go deep on being able to learn and write Python scripts, and maybe you're going to jump into Databricks. Focus on those tools. Focus on narrowing down the tool set that you want to specialize in, and that you want to be an expert on, and those will be the tools that you focus on. There's plenty of other tools out there like Toad, which sounds like something that might not be a data engineering tool, but Toad is a query platform, right? Is a kind of a SQL type platform, similar to like SSMS. And you could connect to multiple different databases with Toad. Toad originally was focused on Oracle, but and you'll hear people talk about Toad for Oracle specifically, but Toad is one of those tools that are agnostic of the database that you're connecting to, and you could connect to multiple different database engines. And there are other tools like that. You have, um, Docker, DBT, Airflow, um, again, AWS Glue, ADF, which is Azure Data Factory, Synapse, Snowflake, Databricks, and then all the database engines, right? Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres. You have like if you are looking at the NoSQL route, you have the MongoDB and all of those. Trying to think of the other big NoSQL database, Cassandra. So there's a ton out there. But there's a ton out there. Don't be overwhelmed by all the different tools. Don't feel like you have to learn that whole array of tools that are out there. Again, pick a stack. My recommendation is, and I have a website, right? GambleDataEngineering.com, and on that website, I talk through my mentoring program. And part of my mentoring program is, I'm going to share my screen here, but part of my mentoring program is going out and identifying 5 to 10 roles that you would be like your perfect role that you would want to apply for, and share screen, and then take the skill sets and the data stack that they're using in those roles, and those are the things that you should focus on learning, right? That's my here it is. That's my recommendation. And so here you see, I have a mentoring program, and it is a subscription based model, but it is I meet with you personally during video. We have video calls, either weekly or bi-weekly, depending on which program you choose. I provide email support. I provide chat support via the Discord. Now connected to Gamble. And then, but in here, it kind of talks through the process, right? There's a self-assessment and some career targeting where you are, again, identifying 5 job postings that you want to focus on. You map out those must-have skills from those job postings. We work together to build your data engineering project. So we talk about what your passions are outside of just data itself, and I help to identify, okay, this is a great data set for that passion, and help you build out what that project looks like, and then you work on that project. So this is kind of the path that I would recommend doing, right? But and that kind of shows you too, again, what specific tools that you need to learn. Hopefully that this one. Now I feel relieved after hearing your personal story. It's not just me. It's not. No, I feel ambiguous with different IT careers. So yeah, I again, sports management after 3 years was not what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Football 365 days a year ruins football for you for a while, especially after being on the field. It's really incredibly difficult to sit in the stands and watch a game. And so it was many years before I went back and sat in the stands and watched a game, because it was just so incredibly different than being on the field, being able to run through, because I went to the University of Tennessee, run through the tee, and being on the ground with 100,000 people in the stands screaming at you and cheering at you. So, but again, decided to go into IT. I learned that I had a knack for data. I originally, didn't know. You're welcome. Absolutely, you're welcome. Uh, I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? I just knew that sports management was not it. And I jumped into a customer service role at a call center. Um, they learned, uh, I identified things and saw things that just weren't being done efficiently in my personal perspective, and I took it on myself to go out and teach myself SQL and teach myself some VB and Visual Basic. Um, and because this was years and years ago, taught myself crystal reports and went out and identified different inefficiencies and took it on myself to work on some of those and help to automate some of those processes and reporting and tools. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And then once the call center saw that I had that skill set, they used me for that skill set, right? They had me do projects that helped to automate some of the processes and reporting around the call center. And then after a little bit doing that, I was a call center manager for a little bit, and part of my job was managing people, and part of my job was helping with the reporting and automation. Um, and because we didn't have data engineer positions back then, but it was data engineering, it was identifying, because we had all these different systems doing all these different things and pulling all that data together into one place. And then again, it was crystal reports back then, but writing crystal reports and creating some reporting about from it was a lot of what I did early on. um, and had the awesome opportunity several times in my career to be a leader, of people, and not just a manager of data. Um, but really loved the data, found that I had a knack for it, and have really pursued that over the years. So hopefully that helps you to feel like you said, uh, like you're not the only one. Especially early in your career. If you're in your 20s and you don't know for sure exactly which of those paths that you want to do yet, don't feel bad. That's normal. Don't don't ever feel bad about that. Great conversation tonight, guys. I've really enjoyed it. So again, as you all know, let me know down in the chat what questions you have. Happy to continue to have these conversations. Um, and I could tell you about different kind of client stories that different situations that I've been in over the years, different things that I've seen from a data perspective. You're welcome, absolutely. Um, and happy to have those conversations. You know, a big thing that we do as data engineers, especially walking into a new role, so often you walk into a role and you're kind of having to take over somebody else's project mid-project sometimes, um, or you're picking up something and you're inheriting things that you long since didn't write. Like, you didn't write it, the people that maybe you took it over from, they didn't write it. If you're lucky enough that those people are even still there to have those conversations with. And sometimes it was even before like the leader or the lead or the manager's time that things were written and created. There's so much legacy code out there. There's so much work out there for data engineering that I'm never concerned about not having any work. There's definitely more work out there than there are people. But all that to say, for those of you that may be in a career already, maybe whether you're doing data or software engineering or some other role, we all have to pick up somebody's mess sometimes. So I want you to drop a yes down in the comments in the chat if you've ever had to pick up and fix somebody else's mess. Um, or maybe you're the one that had made the mess and then you walked away from it. There's no judgment there. That happens. Sometimes you decide that something's not a good fit for you and you move on. So, uh, would love to hear, love to know that I'm not alone there. Uh, oh yes. Um, so yeah, I mean, we've all been there, right? Um, I've worked with clients where the data was just a total disaster, just all over the place, SharePoint lists and Excel files in all kinds of different places. Um, you know, it, Vendor files that were just an email that needed to, be automated and exported, and it just all kinds of things. You know, secrets that appeared, credentials that appeared in code on GitHub. Um, that again, for those of you that haven't heard this story, really was a kind of a puke in the bucket type moment. You'd never, especially moving from a security company to to seeing somebody exposing credentials and secrets in their code and GitHub is a big deal. Um, yeah, mystery spreadsheets from 2007. People that still used XLS files long after the XLSX came out, right? Yeah, yeah. Did we get Databricks data engineer role, or is it Azure data engineer? Did we get Databricks? I would recommend the Databricks data engineer role. Again, the um, Databricks engineers are more uh, technically are more technical roles. Um, and, you have to have a bit higher technical acumen to be in those roles, and that comes with more money, right? So I wouldn't recommend chasing money necessarily, but if you have the aptitude and you have the passion to program and to write Python code, Python scripts, then go for the Databricks data engineer position. Um, Otherwise, you could jump into the Azure Fabric world and go that route. There's plenty. So there is less work out there. There's less job recs out there, less work out there for Databricks data engineers, but they pay more and there's less competition for those roles. There is more Azure roles out there because Azure holds a larger majority of the market. Um, but the money has a tendency to be a little bit less, and the competition has a tendency to be a little bit more. So you have to balance those things and focus on what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about programming, I'd go the Databricks route. All right. So yeah. So for those of you that are aspiring data engineers out there, and it sounds like a lot of you are, um, the biggest career jump really comes when you stop seeing yourself as, just a mover of data, right? And start thinking of yourself as a problem solver and partner for the business. So much of my career, that's what I focused on is I am here. My reason for being is to make the business more efficient, to help them garner the insights from the data that they already have in order to continue to push their business forward and in order to grow their business at a faster rate. And sometimes in order to confirm the assumptions that they already have or to help them reject some of the assumptions that they already have. One of the biggest um, one of the biggest challenges in your career will probably be working with sales leadership that tells you that they know what their market is. They know how to sell to their customer. They know what their customer wants. And absolutely, they have such a huge acumen when it comes to sales, right? Those sales leaders have been doing those, been in those roles for decades probably. They have such deep experience in sales. I personally probably couldn't sell ice to an Eskimo, but but those sales leaders absolutely can. But they have a tendency sometimes to have very steadfast assumptions about their market, about their demographic that they're trying to sell to. And when you present them with data that denies, that kind of rejects their assumptions, that combats their assumptions, it's hard to overcome that because they're going to tell you that you're wrong and you're going to have to explain to them why you're right. So that's one of the big things that you have to do. But you have to be a partner in that. And sometimes you have to, look at the reevaluate the data. And sometimes the data is misleading or wrong or skewed because of something that is in the data. And so being able to partner with those different parts of the business, partner with your marketing roles, partner with your sales roles, partnering with your finance teams. Finance teams are one of those teams that once you win over with how great data engineering and data analytics are for them, like all of a sudden this floodgate of work opens up because they're like, oh, you could help us with all these things that we're doing manually now that we've never trusted anybody, but now we trust you because you've shown us how much you understand about data. And and so those being a partner, and you're there to help the business be more efficient. You're there to help to automate different processes, different systems, different tools, bring the data all together into a central location, whether that be because they're wanting to have a data transformation and be a data driven business, or they're wanting to integrate AI. If you have a company, or if you work with a company that wants to integrate AI, you still have to do all those normal data quality checks, all of those, um, making sure that the data is all in one place, and it's not siloed off in a bunch of different places. AI needs all that processes in place already. All right. Um, We've been on a super long time, have had some amazing conversations. I appreciate everybody that's jumped on tonight. Have really enjoyed our conversations and discussion. Let me know down in the chat if you enjoyed it, and if you want me to come on again at midnight sometime, if this is the time that you're on and you're available. Um, Trying to work out when are good times to jump on and be here for people. Hey, Rory, thank you, you're welcome. um let's see, I have a few more questions for anybody that are still around. um how do you manage, let's see, we answered that question. How do you manage your time with a full-time job? What's one thing you wish every what is yeah, here's a good question for everybody. What is one thing you think or you wish that your stakeholders understood about data before starting a project? Would love to know. Thanks, Samuel. Absolutely. And welcome from LinkedIn. I wasn't sure how many people would show up from LinkedIn. Thank you. Um, yeah, let me know. Oh, hey, Master Chief. Uh, Thank you for your service. Uh, that it takes time even for me to digest and understand. Yes. Good. I'm glad that it was good for you. I'm glad that it helped. Thanks. That means a lot. I feel like everybody assumes I know it all. That's a big one, right? Um, that is what Rory is expressing here, is that I think tell me I'm just making a huge assumption here, but oftentimes stakeholders think that you're like a wizard, right? And you know how to do all the things. And you could take their mess basically and magically make it whole and give you these beautiful reports and clean all their data, and it's going to be perfect afterwards. Um, and that may be the case. Uh, they see us that way because they so often run into people that, from their perspective, it's magic, right? All science was magic at one point. All technology was magic to somebody at one point. If you were to take a cell phone and go out to some rural area that has never seen technology before, they're going to think that you're using magic. I mean, it's just, especially if you're doing like a video chat, they're going to think that it's magic. What advice for someone who is starting out in data engineering? Are there specific certifications to strive for? That is an awesome question. And I will say that from a certification standpoint, for data engineering, pick what you're going to focus on. Pick the thing that you're passionate about and you want to specialize in, and go that route. If you love the Microsoft ecosystem, then pick the Azure Fabric Data Engineer, right? Um, which is DP207. If you are really super techy and you have maybe some networking background, or really enjoy the software networking type stuff, and and have a decent technical acumen, then maybe go AWS and do the uh, AWS data engineer associate that they have now. If you love programming, if you love Python, if that excites you, if you love working with huge data sets, we're talking like petabytes of data, um, then go the Databricks data engineer route. And if you love Snowflake, if you had a chance to be introduced to Snowflake, then you could go the SnowPro route. But pick one of those and stick with it. Don't pick all five. Don't pick three. um, Pick one and stick with it and go that path. That would be my recommendation. And we talked about a lot tonight, um, the Databricks data engineer position, certification. And again, if you're passionate about and really enjoy Python, um, then definitely the Databricks data engineer is the route to go. Again, those roles have a tendency to be a little bit more lucrative because they have a requirement of kind of a higher technical acumen, um, than like the Azure route. But to balance that, Azure has a larger market share, so there are more positions for Azure roles. There's and more competition. There is less positions, but considerably less competition for Databricks data engineer roles. Hopefully that is clear. It's not just clear as mud, but hopefully it's pretty clear. Awesome. So I would love to know, and this is going to be a poll the audience here moment here, but is how many of you, and maybe just say consult in the comments in the chat, how many of you are considering consulting or think consulting might be something that you'd like to do at some point in your career? I'd love to know. Um, when I first started, it wasn't something that you're welcome. It wasn't something that I considered until probably about 7 years into doing this. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining me tonight. Again, I've really enjoyed these sessions. I don't know if I'd be comfortable enough to consult. I didn't think I would be either. So when in fact, so this ages me a little bit, but so does my gray hair and my baldness. But you're welcome, Data Ranger. 100% consulting. Um, I was gonna say, it, this dates me a little bit, but it was, picture this, it was 2008, and it was August 2008, which those of you that were of an age that was going on in the world in the US in August of 2008, you'll under, or maybe in, yeah, August 2008, you'll understand the the complexity of the situation. But at the end of July, I decided I'm going to jump ship. I am going to leave US Cellular and I am going to do consulting. I was excited about it. I was passionate about it. I was going to do it. And consulting's definitely a way to go. I think. Um, and so August 2008, I did it. I jumped ship. I left my career at US Cellular and started doing uh, data data consulting, right? And you'll see, like, for instance, my LinkedIn. If you look me up on LinkedIn, then you'll see that my LinkedIn link is actually database management, right? And so that's what I did. I mean, in 2008, we didn't have data engineers. We had database managers and SQL developers and report analysts. Um, so so I so that's why my LinkedIn says database management as my, for those of you that are looking for me on LinkedIn, that's my LinkedIn link. Um, but uh, August 2008 in the US, the stock market took a quick downturn, and it became incredibly difficult for small businesses to keep the doors open sometimes. And and that was the that was the path I was going on, as I was going to go out and help small businesses learn how to manage their data and teach them how to create some automations and do some reporting, so that they could better manage their businesses. And so I ended up kind of diversifying a little bit, and I did website and database management. And so I did, early on, in 2008, I did that. I did that for about 3.5 years. Ended up doing such a wide array of things because, as those of you that are in any technical field know, once somebody knows that you do something technical, they think you do all the things technical. So I found myself helping clients with PC issues. I found myself helping clients with cybersecurity type issues. I found myself helping clients with, again, the database management. I created, point of sale systems for customers. I created, it did anything, in from 2008 to 2011 to to make money, basically, right? Just trying to get together a business and pay for insurance. Health insurance was incredibly expensive, is still incredibly expensive. Um, we have some opportunities in the US to use the marketplace. But if you're other places in the world, then maybe are lucky enough to live in a country where you have some, or unlucky, depending on how things are going with it. Um, but where you don't have to worry about paying for health insurance, that it's more of a government type issued thing. Um, so maybe you don't have to worry about that, but in the U.S. you do have to worry about paying for your own health insurance and medical type stuff. So was an incredible, but all that to say, incredibly expensive. 2008 was not the time to jump ship. Uh, for those of you that were around in 2008 and know, but ended up doing it for about 3.5 years. I really enjoyed working with a wide array of different companies in in this area, in East Tennessee. Got to work for a company called Denso for a little bit. Contracted with them for a little bit, and that was really a neat experience, because they're a Japanese based company, and they do auto part manufacturing. For those of you that don't know, if you look at your alternator in your car, it's probably stamped with a Denso label. A lot of they make a lot of alternators and starters and things like that for like Toyotas and even for Fords. So I'll pop this up here if you're interested in finding me on LinkedIn. But such a worked with uh, some nonprofit groups, worked with Family Promise, helping Family Promise. I worked with a local food bank, helping them set up some centralized reporting and a system that they could use to help track the people that were coming in to get food. So it was an amazing opportunity and helped to kind of set me on a good path for my career at AT&T for 14 years before I recently kind of jumped back into doing some contracting and consulting to give myself a little bit of freedom. But I see we're dwindling down. It is 1:30 a.m. almost my time. I think probably gonna scoot away here if nobody else has any final questions. But if you have any questions about consulting, if you're interested in doing consulting and you want to hear more about my story, um, then let me know, and I'm happy uh, to share that story another time. In addition, if you want to know more about my background and my history, again, on LinkedIn, you'll see that I have a newsletter called Data with Direction, and you could join that newsletter. And this week's newsletter was my uh, my evil hero origin story, kind of how I moved into data engineering and consulting. But I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Have really enjoyed talking to everybody tonight. Uh, Please come again, and I'll talk to you again soon. Until next time, keep your pipelines clean and your queries lean. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, guys.